Thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate that. Our friend, Michael Marks. That was very cool. John, am I your friend? Mark. Oh, yes. Where's my corn dog, though? So I have a phone here, and I need to give this phone to somebody. All right. 7 years ago, I gave that phone to you because I was expecting our fourth and final child, right? Right. And little Lincoln was born a little bit later. And Lincoln's the baby of the family, so we call him Babe Lincoln. And so literally, I handed you the phone. I said, look, if my wife calls, please let me know. I got to go. So actually, I'm giving you the phone because my daughter-in-law is expecting our fourth grandchild within the next week. So, you know, with your fourth child, it can happen at any moment. So if you see Shane Marks come up there, that's my son, please just stop me. So, see, it's 7 years later. You're still checking out my phone. Anyway, my name is Michael Marks. I'm known as Your Produce Man on CBS 13. I celebrate, 22 years on CBS 13 there in Sacramento. And I started just as a weekly guest and still am a weekly guest every Monday at noon on CBS 13. For the past 7 years, I'm also on Good Day Sacramento, which is every Wednesday, which is why I'm dressed like this. I normally would have dressed up for you. But this morning I was up in Gridley, California, which is the kiwi fruit capital of the United States, right? So we were harvesting kiwi fruit. In fact, I wore my kiwi fruit shirt. You know, and I was really excited about this because this was my very first produce shirt. And I have 55 of them now. And this was my very first 22 years ago. And what makes me so excited, I still fit into it. Yes, after 22 years, I love that part more than anything else. So I was up in Gridley with Doug Wilson this morning, a great farmer up there who has several hundred acres of kiwi fruit. And this is kiwi fruit season. They are harvesting. So when we started the segment, I laid on my back. And I was just looking up at the kiwi fruit vines, you know, and they're about 7 to 8 feet above you. And I'm just looking up there at hundreds of beautiful little kiwi fruit. I mean, it's the most glorious sight that you ever could see. Just lay on your back on the orchard floor and just look up at that sight of beautiful kiwi fruit, the healthiest fruit grown on planet Earth today. It's like a little vitamin pill with a little bit of fuzz on it. And that's what it is, because it's loaded with vitamin C, loaded with potassium, loaded with lutein, or lutein, however you want to pronounce it, loaded with folate, loaded with vitamin E. I mean, it's loaded with just about every A, B, C, D, and zinc in there. And that's a kiwi fruit. And I tell kids all the time, it's a vitamin pill with fuzz. And so I get kids to come up all the time, and I hand them a kiwi fruit, and I grab a kiwi fruit, and I said, okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. And I make them eat it, with the fuzz on and all. And I said, look, if you eat a peach with the fuzz on, what's the deal with the kiwi fruit, you know? You don't need to peel that thing, just chomp into it. And so I grab a kiwi fruit and I said, if you want to get a little bit of the fuzz off, just rub it against your shirt. You know, a little bit of the fuzz will come off and just eat it like an apple. So it's very cool. I thought it would be really fun today for the next, 20 minutes or so until your next workshop. I thought it'd be fun to take a look back into the produce department 25 years ago. What did it look like 25 years ago when California Ag in the Classroom began? And I could go back further, but then I'd have to have John come up here and talk about what it was like at the day of Moses. But I'm waiting for my corn dog. But anyway, I thought it'd be fun because, I started in the produce industry working in a little mom-and-pop grocery store. And this was over 30 years ago now. And a little ma-and-pa grocery store in Amador County, if any of you know where that's at. A little place called Sutter Hill. And there was Safeway in Jackson, and there was One Stop Market in Sutter Hill, California. And that was like the only 2 grocery stores in all of Amador County. And here I was, a little 18-year-old kid in college, working in a produce department. And I knew nothing about produce. Nothing. Produce to me, when I was 18, was canned corn and frozen green beans. That was produce to me. Fortunately, I lived in a county where we had a lot of old Yugoslavian and Italian women who lived in Amador County. Well, live in Amador County. And many of these old ladies, they grew up on the old farms in old Italy or Yugoslavia or somewhere. And these ladies, they would come into our store. And they would come into my little produce department. And I would literally grab my knife, my little produce knife, and I would get it out, and I would literally follow that lady around my produce department, asking them hundreds of questions. Well, how do you know that's a good cantaloupe? Where are you going to store your cantaloupe? Because, I knew nothing. And so bless their heart, those little old ladies from Amador County, they started me on my path of education about produce. But I remember distinctly what my produce department looked like 25 years ago. Do you know what the produce department looked like 25 years ago? We had about 140 produce items 25 years ago when Ag in the Classroom began. 140 produce items. Today, walk down any major grocery store, produce department, how many produce items are there today? Well over 350. Yeah. And, one of the biggest changes in the produce department was those 4 little numbers on every produce item. The PLU, price lookup code. Because when I first started in produce, we had to know every produce item and the price. Because when tomatoes came up, we had to know how much per pound it was. And that was back in the days where you had the scale there, and it had that little slide rule thing, and it'd say price per pound, how many pounds, okay, 1.24, and you'd go down and that was the price. So you punch the green code on the little cash register, green for produce, and the amount. And that was 25 years, that wasn't that long ago. And that's what the produce department was like. Today, you got those little PLU codes on everything. And the clerks don't have to know what anything is. Just look at that PLU code. Sometimes it's 5 because 5 would be an organic produce item. So I thought I would just simply bring some produce items that were not here 25 years ago. You would be amazed at some of the things that you would walk into the produce aisle. That wasn't here 25 years ago. No, it wasn't here 25 years ago. Oh, by the way, I brought some important gloves with me. I'll tell you about those gloves. This is the most important thing in the produce department, as according to your produce man. Because if you want to do 0 to guacamole in 60 seconds or less, you better have some fresh cut pico de gallo. That is how I do 0 to guacamole in 60 seconds or less. And we do it every year at the State Fair, don't we, John?
Unless I take it and hide it.
Unless he takes it and hides it, yes. And the fresh cut industry was not here 25 years ago. Think about it. There was no fresh cut fruit. There was no fresh cut salads in a bag. There was no pico de gallo that you could make guacamole out of. 25 years ago, it wasn't here. What in the world did we do 25 years ago? Holy Toledo, we had to make our own salads. We didn't have these things that we could just pick up, as we're driving home. And I remember when these first came out, 1989, 1990, these first came out. And my mom said, "You want me to pay how much for that little bag of lettuce?" Right? How many of you said that when it first came out, right? Now, it's like 48 feet of fresh cut produce in a produce department, right? And there's like 5 shelves of 48 feet. That's like 240 feet of fresh cut produce. It wasn't here 25 years ago when Ag in the Classroom began. What did you do? Oh, you cut it up all by yourself, huh? Okay. I remember Ann Veneman, the first female California State Department of Food and Agriculture secretary, and I remember her often saying that, we're not in the kitchen nearly as much as we used to be. And you were in the kitchen a lot more when you had to cut up all of your own lettuce. But you don't have to be anymore. And I tell people all the time, this is my 5th undeniable culinary truth of a perfect holiday meal. This is my 5th undeniable truth, culinary truth, for a perfect holiday meal. I tell people, go ahead and use fresh cut salads. Just throw the bag away before your guests arrive. And they'll never know. So what did you do? 25 years ago, it wasn't here. 25 years ago, watermelons were still 25 to 30 pounds. 25 years ago, we did not have this. The little personal-sized watermelon. Can you believe that? How many of you buy a personal-sized watermelon today? Proudly raise your hand. Come on. Yes, most of us buy this little personal-sized watermelon. Can you even find a seeded watermelon anymore? When I first started in the produce industry, there wasn't even seedless. We still had seeded. Those big 30-pound Texas watermelons that came in from Arizona or New Mexico or Texas, you know, the big striped melons. In fact, my very first job working in the produce department was chucking those watermelons to my boss. You know, and that's what we seem to do all day long, you know, especially in July and August. And then Syngenta Seed Company, bless their heart, they're one of your major sponsors. Syngenta Seed Company spent 10 years to develop this. They first had to make it seedless because they realize Americans are getting lazier and lazier. They don't want seeds in their watermelon anymore. So they had to make it seedless. You know how to get a seedless watermelon, right? You cross a diploid with a tetraploid, you get a triploid. Right? You knew that. It's like crossing a horse with a donkey to get a mule. A mule has no seeds. A mule does not reproduce. It's the same thing with your watermelon. Diploid, tetraploid, triploid. And that's how we get a seedless watermelon even today. And so they first had to make it seedless. O.J. Ixty, by the way, was the guy who first developed the very first seedless watermelon. He was from Iowa. And the guy who developed this actually worked with O.J. Ixty in the early part of his career. So it was very exciting. So they had to make it seedless. They had to make it small. 3 to 5 pounds. That's as big as they get. 3 to 5 pounds. That's as big as they get. And they wanted to make it small because families are getting smaller. There's a single mom and maybe a child or two. Or there's an older couple. You know, what's an older couple going to do with 30 pounds of watermelon? You know, first of all, what do you have to clean out in your refrigerator even to put the watermelon in there? Yeah, everything. You have to clean out a whole shelf, right? This fits right in the little milk space, you know. It goes right on in there. It's very cool. Number 3, they had to make the rind as thin as the rind on a cantaloupe. Because can you imagine if this had a regular rind on it? You know, there would be like a little handful of flesh inside, right? So they had to make the rind as thin as a rind on a cantaloupe. So those 3 things is what they had to do. And it took them 10 years to do it. Syngenta Seed Company. And the guy who did it was Jingping Pang. Oh, Jingping Zhang. He's this little short Chinese guy, a professor from China that now works here. In fact, these are his gloves. And he signed them for me. Very, very cool. In fact, I was out with him in, looking at the newest watermelon for the next generation. And it's very, very cool, some of the stuff that they're coming up with. But this was not here 25 years ago. Just think about it. Ag in the classroom, 25 years old. So many produce items were not here. 25 years ago, you had to buy your corn, rush home with the boiling water, and throw the corn in the boiling water. Is this not true? Yes. But now we have this super sweet summer varieties of corn that stay sweeter longer. But we did not have that 25 years ago. We still had to go straight from the grocery store, right home, and throw it in the boiling water immediately so it would taste decent. Isn't this cool? We can have super sweet summer corn. And we did not have this 25 years ago. We did not have, kiwi fruit actually was just getting started 25 years ago. And I remember my mom also saying about kiwi fruit, you want me to pay $1 for that ugly, fuzzy brown little thing? You know, but now you can get them like 3 for $1 or, you know, 39 cents, 49 cents. But 25 years ago, we did not have this little kiwi fruit, the golden kiwi fruit. You know, we have the regular we have the regular Hayward variety, the green one. But, you know, there are 65 different varieties of Yang Tao, or Chinese gooseberry, still in the Yangtze River Valley in China. And that's where the kiwi fruit originated. And for centuries, it was known as Yang Tao to the Chinese dynasties and to the great Khans of China. And so what some growers in New Zealand did is they took their green-seeded variety and they crossed it with this little tiny Chinese gooseberry that was yellow inside. And they came up with what they call a golden kiwi fruit. And it has no fuzz. It has that cute little beak on top, but it's gold inside. And the flavor, oh man, when you let that thing ripen, it is so good. But 25 years ago, kiwi fruit was barely around, but we didn't have gold kiwi fruit. What else was not here? We did not have golden pineapple. Remember the pineapple we got 25 years ago? It was on a boat for, I don't know, 10 weeks from Hawaii. You know, and you'd get it and you'd hope it would be good. But then they developed this golden variety of kiwi fruit. And I said, this golden variety is actually going to put me out of business, because I don't have to teach you how to pick out a good one. They're all good. And but we did not have this golden variety of beautiful pineapple like we did 25 years ago. How many of you love the gold pineapple these days? We didn't have it 25 years ago. Anybody call yet? Not yet? Okay, thank you. Let's see, what else didn't we have? Oh my goodness. What would we do without this mushroom today? The portobello mushroom was not here 25 years ago. When I started in the produce industry, there was the white Agaricus bisporus button mushroom. And that was all we sold. Now, you walk into a mushroom department, what do you find? You find creminis, you find portobellinis, you find portobellas, you find oysters, you find shiitakes. I mean, just think of the mushroom department in the past 25 years. 25 years ago, you did not have this beautiful mushroom. You know what I love to do with this? This is on the side. Okay? This is for free. This, you turn in to a pizza. And I did this, when this first came out, I was trying to figure out, okay, what do you do with this? There's lots of things. I turn this into beef stroganoff, you know, instead of strips of beef. Oh, sorry, beef people. Sorry about that. Once in a while. I still love beef. But once in a while, if I have my vegetarian friends over, I will put strips of portobello into my beef stroganoff. They don't even know it's not beef. It tastes just like it. But I turn this into a pizza. You de-stump the mushroom. Just take the stump out. That's actually called a stump, not the stem. And then you take these gills out. You just get a spoon, and they just pop right out. And then you get your favorite pizza sauce. You can use pesto sauce if you want. And just put that in. And I love to do this with the kids. The little Marx brothers love to make their own pizza. I mean, what kid does not like to paint something, right? So they get the little kitchen brush, and they paint their spaghetti sauce in there, right? And then I cut up all kinds of different things for the pizza. There's some little diced bell peppers. There's some little diced onions, red bell peppers. There's some diced pepperoni. And, you know, the kids just go along and they sprinkle things in there. And then they get their favorite cheese. It goes right on top. In the oven, 375 for about 15 to 17 minutes. Oh, my goodness. That was for free. But you did not have this 15 years ago. 15 years ago, you did not have these fabulous on-the-vine tomatoes. The tomato section 25 years ago was mature green tomatoes and cherry tomatoes. And that was it. You walk into a tomato section today, what's it look like? You've got you've got a huge display of these tomatoes on the vine. You see all of these beautiful cocktail tomatoes, like these grape tomatoes. By the way, you know how we got these grape tomatoes? There were a couple tomato growers from California, and they were in Bangkok, Thailand, on vacation after the tomato season. And in Bangkok, Thailand, they were at a restaurant. And in this restaurant, you know, like some restaurants here give you chips and salsa, or maybe peanuts. In this restaurant, they gave you little tomatoes as a little appetizer. And these tomato growers from California, they were chomping on these tomatoes. Before they realized it, all the tomatoes were gone. And they looked at each other. Have you ever tasted a tomato like that? That was good. Let's get some more. So they brought over some seeds. I suggest you do not do that. California Department of Food and Ag does not like you bringing in seeds. But they brought over some seeds and they started growing this grape tomato. How many of you buy grape tomatoes? It was not here 25 years ago. Wow. So many items. Fresh herbs. 25 years ago, herbs to you were still those dry things in the cabinet, right? Is this true? And then we started getting fresh herbs in. Now you go into a produce department and there's a beautiful display of everything from basil to rosemary and sage and everything in between. But we did not have fresh herbs 25 years ago. Look at the things we take for granted today that wasn't here. Look at all the varieties of apples we have today. 25 years ago, the top 3 apples were Red Delicious, Golden Delicious, and Granny. And in fact, 25 years ago, Red Delicious and Golden Delicious accounted for almost 75% of all the apples sold in the United States. 25 years ago. Guess what? Walk down a produce aisle, any produce aisle today. How many apples are there? 10, 12, even more? And they weren't here 25 years ago. The Pink Lady apple. The Honeycrisp apple. Yes, oh, what did we do without those? The Fuji apple. The Gala was barely getting started 25 years ago. What did we do without all those apples? I got to tell you, the Honeycrisp apple, in my humble opinion, having been in the produce industry for only 30 years, the Honeycrisp apple is, in my humble opinion, the best tasting apple on the face of the planet. If you have never tried a Honeycrisp apple, the name is honey. It's very sweet. Crisp, it's probably one of the crispiest apples. It literally explodes in your mouth. One of the best tasting apples. But we did not have this 25 years ago. So many apples we did not have 25. The pluot was not here 25 years ago. What did we do? We had those little tiny plums every summer. And then Floyd Zeiger from Modesto decided that he was going to create a plum that his grandkids would actually love. And so he began a quest of creating this fabulous pluot, which is 2/3 plum, 1/3 apricot. And that's why it has all of those crazy names, like Dapple Dandy, and Dinosaur Egg, and Flavor Grenade, and all of these cool names. Why? Because Floyd Zeiger, who's 85 and still walks in his orchard every year with his knife, cutting all the different varieties, Floyd is still trying to create things that kids will love and eat. And that's why he has all those crazy names. But we didn't have pluots 25 years ago. Boy, I could just keep on going in here with all the things we didn't have. We didn't have these little cute little pumpkins 25 years ago. We had a jack-o'-lantern, and that was all we had. Today, you walk down any farmer's market or the produce department, how many different varieties of pumpkins do you find today? Including these cute little jackby little mini pumpkins. And the white ones are called little boos. So cute. But we didn't have them 25 years ago. I just thought we'd go down memory lane for a few minutes so you'd realize how lucky we are here in the state of California to have some of the best scientists, to have some of the best farmers anywhere in the world creating all of these brand new produce items for you and me so that we can walk down a produce aisle and feel like we're a king and a queen. Thank you so much for having me here today.